right, so let's dive into those tough conversations. You know, the ones you'd rather avoid
Oh, yeah.
with those difficult people.
Yeah.
And we've got Mel Robbins' YouTube interview with Jefferson Fiser, the trial lawyer, to help us.
Yeah, Mel Robbins, she's great. And Fiser adds a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Not just law, but his book, The Next Conversation, too.
Exactly. He makes it feel like we can actually use the stuff in our lives.
For sure.
So we're going to look at shifting our mindset using the power of silence and some really simple phrases to, like, de-escalate things.
One thing that really struck me about his approach,
Yeah.
he doesn't see these conversations as like a battle to win.
Oh, interesting.
It's not about manipulation or like outsmarting the other person.
Okay.
It's more about understanding them and using that to navigate the conversation.
So let's break that down. One of the first things he talks about is shifting our mindset.
Right.
He says calling someone difficult, that already, like, sets a negative tone.
Totally. And what's fascinating is that he suggests we see that behavior as a bid for connection. Think about it. When people are acting out or being difficult,
Yeah.
they're usually trying to get a need met. Maybe feeling unheard or like they're not connecting.
That's a really interesting way to reframe it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that story Fiser tells about that ugly witness during a deposition.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
The guy was so rude, but then Fiser just asks him, "What are you struggling with today?"
And everything changed.
Totally. The witness opened up about some personal stuff he was dealing with,
Right.
and it was clear his behavior was coming from this place of vulnerability.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking, this person is being difficult,
Uh-huh.
what if we thought this person might be struggling and needs connection?
How would that change things for you?
I think it would make me way more patient.
I think so, too.
Right.
It helps you approach the situation with empathy.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to like their behavior,
No.
but you see the human behind the facade.
Okay, so Fiser also talks about silence.
Yeah.
He has this great line, "Silence can never be misquoted." Ah, true.
And I think we don't realize how powerful saying less can be.
Absolutely. We always feel like we have to fill the silence.
Yeah.
Or come up with some clever response.
Right.
But that can actually make things worse. Silence can kind of disrupt that pattern.
So if someone's trying to provoke you,
Yeah.
not reacting right away,
Takes away their power.
he has this technique where you pause for like 10 seconds
Oh, yeah.
after someone says something disrespectful.
Okay.
And then you say, that's below my standard for a response.
It's assertive, but not aggressive.
Right.
Yeah.
What if someone keeps making comments about you being single?
Oh, I hate that.
Fiser suggests saying something like, did you say that to hurt me?
Makes them think twice.
It puts them on the spot.
Yeah, they have to either own it or back down.
When do you think this pause and respond thing would be useful?
When you're feeling triggered,
Yeah.
or when you know you react without thinking,
Uh-huh.
it gives you time to choose a better response.
Fiser also talks about defending your time perimeter.
Like when someone tries to take over your time,
You get that call.
and
Got a minute.
it's an hour later.
Exactly.
Fiser has some phrases for this, like, "Is this something we have to agree on right now?"
I like that.
It's a gentle way of saying,
Yeah.
not now.
Without shutting them down.
Right. He also uses, "I could do better,"
Oh, yeah.
or "maybe so."
You acknowledge their point,
Yeah.
but you don't have to agree.
Like when you're at the store and your partner starts debating which detergent to buy.
Oh, yeah.
Is this something we have to agree on right now?
Haha. Perfect. It's like you're adding some humor
Yeah.
and it diffuses the tension.
We don't have to engage in every argument.
Definitely. So think about your own life.
Hmm.
Any arguments lately where these phrases could have helped?
Oh, probably a ton. I just get sucked in sometimes.
Fiser gives us tools to handle things better.
And with less stress, let's talk about gaslighting and belittling behavior.
Okay, tougher territory.
It's hard to stay grounded.
Fiser's advice is so smart. He says use phrases like, I see things differently,
Okay.
or I remember things differently when someone's gaslighting you.
It's so simple.
Right.
But gaslighting makes you doubt yourself.
Yeah.
So repeating these phrases, even if they keep pushing,
Uh-huh.
helps you stay with your truth.
Like you're saying, I won't let you manipulate me.
He also talks about making them repeat a belittling comment
Oh, yeah.
to take away its power.
Like calling their bluff.
Have you ever been gaslighted?
I think so, yeah.
Oh.
It's hard to tell sometimes.
How do you think those phrases could help?
They give you a way to take back control.
Now, Fiser's approach isn't about being passive
Right.
or letting people walk all over you.
No. He's big on setting boundaries, especially with family.
He tells that story about setting a boundary with his own grandfather.
I remember that.
who was being disrespectful at a family gathering.
It was a tough conversation, but it made their relationship better.
Yeah, it shows that boundaries aren't about punishing someone. It's about creating healthier interactions.
And it goes back to assuming good intent.
You can love someone and still hold them accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
what about Fiser's advice on dealing with narcissists?
We probably all know at least one.
Yeah, he talks about their praise or provoke game.
Either they want to be admired or they want drama.
How do you handle those types?
Fiser says don't give them what they want.
Meaning?
Keep your distance, be neutral. Don't give long explanations they can twist.
So basically, don't engage.
It's like, don't wrestle with a pig. You both get dirty and the pig likes it.
Uh-huh. I like that.
So it's not just about diffusing conflict or winning arguments.
No, it's deeper than that.
It's about understanding why people act the way they do.
And using that knowledge to have better conversations.
I want to touch on one more story.
Okay.
Fiser talks about his dad, who would send these short one-word texts.
Oh, interesting.
Like, oh, okay.
I can see how that would be frustrating.
Right. At first, he thought his dad was being rude. But then he realized it was just his dad's way of communicating. And I think that's a huge lesson.
Right.
Instead of jumping to conclusions, what if we try to understand why someone is acting that way?
That's so important. Everyone communicates differently.
Right. And sometimes those styles clash.
But if you approach those differences with curiosity
Yeah.
and a willingness to understand,
It can totally change things.
for sure.
Okay. I think this is a good place to pause.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
This first part of our deep dive into mastering difficult conversations.
Right. We talked about shifting your mindset,
The power of silence,
phrases for de-escalation.
and how to deal with gaslighting and narcissism.
There's still so much more to talk about.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll go deeper into Fiser's ideas on boundaries, good intent, and controlling your breath in those heated moments.
Welcome back. It's really making me think about how I communicate.
Me too. It's a good reminder that we can always improve.
Yeah. So Fiser connects understanding communication styles with setting boundaries.
Okay.
It's not about accepting bad behavior,
Right.
but seeing that people express themselves differently. And sometimes we need to draw a line.
He tells that story about setting a boundary with his grandfather.
Yeah, who was making those disrespectful comments.
Tough conversation.
Yeah.
But their relationship got better.
What I noticed is he didn't try to attack him or change him. He just communicated what was okay and what wasn't.
And that's where assuming good intent comes in.
Right.
You can approach these conversations with compassion.
Not judgment.
You don't condone the behavior, but you see the person behind it.
Like, be kind. Everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.
We never really know what someone else is going through.
Exactly. So back to those challenging personalities.
Okay.
What about Fiser's advice on dealing with narcissists?
Yeah. Have you ever met someone like that?
Oh, yeah. I think we all have. Maybe a coworker or family member or even a friend.
It can be so draining.
To deal with someone who always needs attention or loves drama.
Fiser says don't feed into that.
The praise or provoke game.
Right. Keep your distance, be neutral, and don't get sucked into those long explanations.
They can just twist your words around.
Basically, don't play their game. Protect yourself.
Makes sense. Let's talk about one of Fiser's most powerful tools.
Okay.
The power of breath.
We often forget about that.
It's so basic, though. When we're stressed, we breathe faster.
Shallow breaths.
Yeah. Which triggers that fight or flight response.
And then we say things we regret.
So if we slow down our breathing,
We calm down.
our nervous system calms down, and we gain control.
Fiser says it's like being in the pocket, like a musician.
Staying centered even when things are crazy.
How can we be more aware of our breath during a tough conversation?
Have a few techniques ready.
Like,
Take a few deep breaths before things get tense.
okay,
Or set a reminder to check in with your breath.
just throughout the day,
Anything to break that stress response.
create some space
That pause between the trigger and your reaction.
so you can choose a better response.
Moving towards the end of our deep dive. I want to go back to something Fiser said.
Yeah.
Don't give someone else an enemy.
It makes you think,
It's about how we create conflict.
do we go in with an open mind or do we assume the worst?
And not just big conflicts.
Right.
Little things, too.
Arguments with coworkers, misunderstandings with friends.
It's easy to get stuck in our own heads
Yeah.
and think the other person's doing it on purpose.
What if we tried to see their side?
And that's where assuming good intent is so important.
Not being naive
Yeah.
or ignoring real problems.
It's about believing that people usually aren't trying to be mean.
They might just be stressed
or tired.
Or communicating differently.
It's about giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Like we would want them to do for us.
And remember,
Yeah.
assuming good intent doesn't mean we let people walk all over us.
Right. It's just a better place to start,
A more open and compassionate mindset.
which can lead to a better outcome.
As we wrap up,
Okay.
one more thing from Fiser that really hit me.
What's that?
Choosing your battles.
We only have so much time and energy.
You can't fight about everything.
Sometimes it's better to let go.
To agree to disagree or just walk away.
You have to know when to stand up for yourself.
And when to choose a different path.
Focus on what really matters,
Be mindful of your words.
because they can either make things better or worse.
That's a good point to end on.
We've covered a lot.
Shifting our mindset.
Silence.
De-escalation.
Assuming good intent.
Choosing our battles.
Hopefully our listeners feel more confident
About handling those tough conversations.
with grace and compassion.
If you want to learn more, check out Jefferson Fiser's book, The Next Conversation.
It's full of great advice.
And real stories you can use.
Thanks for joining us.
We're glad you're here.
Back again for our deep dive into mastering those difficult conversations. We've gotten so much from Jefferson Fiser.
Yeah, it's been great.
So much to think about.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that idea of not giving someone else an enemy.
That one really stuck with me too.
It's such a powerful thought.
It makes you realize we have a part in creating conflict.
Right. Like, are we open-minded or are we already assuming the worst?
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
not just those big blowouts.
Right. Like those everyday disagreements.
With coworkers or friends,
Even little annoyances with family.
it's so easy to let those things build up.
Yeah, and turn into something bigger.
We get stuck in our own heads.
Thinking they're doing it on purpose.
What if we tried to see things from their side?
That's where assuming good intent comes in.
It's not about being naive
No.
or ignoring real issues.
It's about believing that most of the time people aren't being malicious.
Maybe they're just having a bad day.
Or they're stressed.
Or they just communicate differently.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
Like we'd want them to do for us.
And it's important to remember,
Yeah,
assuming good intent doesn't mean we're pushovers.
right. We can still set boundaries.
It's just a starting point,
A more compassionate way to approach things.
which can lead to a better result.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive,
I want to highlight one more thing from Fiser.
go for it.
Choosing your battles.
We can't fight every fight.
Right. We have to be smart about it.
Sometimes it's best to just let it go.
Agree to disagree or even just walk away.
It takes practice.
To know when to stand up and when to move on.
Focus your energy on what's truly important.
And choose your words carefully.
They can either make things better or worse.
I think that's a perfect place to end.
We've learned so much.
About handling difficult conversations.
From shifting our mindset,
Through the power of silence.
de-escalation phrases,
Assuming good intent.
and choosing our battles.
It's been a great deep dive.
We hope you found it helpful.
And that you feel more prepared to navigate those tough conversations with confidence and compassion.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next time.